quite familiar with the experimental on determine material properties such as conducting the skid resistance, and then for the permeability test, and also how do you identify the modulus of the material itself, the thickness of the layers, to ensure the road surface is able to carry the dynamic or vehicle loads. So the purpose of the road constructions, when you design and construct the road layers, there are a few factors involved. For example, considering the route design, and then considering the dynamic load coming from the vehicles. Is it we have the passenger car unit loading, or we have some sort of the lorry truck, or so these are the things factors included when you are designing the pavement or the road constructions. Similarly, in choosing the right material to be laid on the structure, as I said again lah, if you choose for having a flexible pavement, so we're gonna opt for asphalt, and vice versa. But these are two different material if you look at on the asphalt and concrete. So asphalt, there are disadvantage when we are using the asphalt for surfacing road, because it is rely on the current temperature or the asphalt temperature itself. And then on the concrete, we have to wait to the 28 days to gain the maximum concrete strength. So these are the differences if you look at to the material characteristic in details. So and then lastly, back to the budget lah. If your company has a lot of budget, so we and to have the long lasting pavement structure, so we're gonna have for concrete pavement. Otherwise, you can have for flexible pavement. And this next slide, you can see the differences between flexible and rigid pavement. For example, the flexible pavement is last for 20 years, and the rigid pavement more longer than 40 years. And the flexible pavement is a high cost and scheduled maintenance. Meanwhile, for rigid pavement is more economic maintenance and no stability. Flexible pavement is very cheap and easy to get the material, and rigid pavement, we're gonna have a problem such as shortage in concrete supply, cement supply, and etc. We have low initial cost for flexible pavement, and we have a high initial cost for rigid pavement, because rigid pavement is a concrete. So remember, when you are forming a concrete cube, so what are the materials being used to form a concrete cube? First, we're gonna have a aggregate, and then we of course need a cement, and then we need water. So all these mixtures are depending on your concrete mix design. If you have a good concrete mix design with appreciate weight of the material, so you can produce a good strength of the concrete cube. However, if you have a problem on gaining this kind of specific material to form a concrete, so that will be affected to the concrete strength itself. And the next one is for flexible pavement, it's easy to upgrade. It means that for static constructions lah, for repairing or for maintenance activity. But rigid pavement is it cannot be upgraded, and no static constructions involved. This is the common failures on the flexible pavement, such as rutting and potholes. And for rigid pavement, it is free from rutting, pothole, and corrugations. So remember, kalau you present, kalau kata jalan raya di Malaysia lah, mostly kita akan nampak our road having a problem on the potholes, a lot of patchings on the road surface. So all this causes to the discomfort during the traveling. And the flexible pavement is less economic for the long durations and more economical for long duration for rigid pavement. And it can be used once ready, but the rigid pavement, the traffic discipline wait for maximum strength 28 days. So I hope that every one of you very familiar or can easy to differentiate the differences between the flexible and rigid pavement. Okay, these are two manuals that can be that you can refer from the online, from any source of the notes. I also uploaded this manual in my future folder. So I just show briefly the example of this manual for asphalt road. So how it is, how the roads is the roads are classified according to the surface failures. I mean that is it the road is good in good condition, so we're gonna rate as 10. If you encounter a road very frequent or very often has this kind of failure cracks on the road surface, so we're gonna rate between 1 to 4. And this is the kind of the road surface where we rate as a 1, having so much pothole rotting, alligator crack, etc. And if you look at on this one, for asphalt pavement, these are the common defects or evaluation being carried out on surface defects, surface deformation, cracks, patches, and potholes. And if you go in depth, you can see where is the locations that we commonly encounter this kind of the road, this kind of the road failure. Okay, surface defect, for example, raveling, flushing, polishing, and then for the surface deformations, example is rutting, distortion, rippling and shoving, settling, and frost heave. For cracks, for example, we're gonna have kind of transverse crack, reflection, slippage, longitudinal block, and alligator cracks. Patches and potholes are two form of the deterioration which has two general causes due to environmental, weathering, edging, and structural caused by repeated traffic loading. So the problems coming from these failures due to the weathering and also the traffic loadings. Okay, this is example for asphalt manual. And then if you go to the concrete manual, we can see that the evaluations similarly like asphalt pavement, that but now we have a joint because for constructions in construction for concrete pavement, we're gonna apply or we're gonna use a joint between the crack structure. So sorry, we're gonna apply joint in the pavement structure. So the joints is used to bear any kind of the forces or moment that acting to the structure due to the loads. And then just to give on what's exactly the rigid pavement. So the rigid pavement, we have a concrete, either non-reinforced or reinforced concrete. So we also have a reinforcement. It's usually provided by steel wire mesh placed approximately at the mid-slab depth. So the reinforcement is intended to limit crack opening and movement in the concrete slab. So the important part about the concrete pavement, either you have the reinforcement or you don't have the reinforcement. Okay, of course, we want to have a long-lasting concrete pavement, so we're going to use reinforcement or steel wire mesh to prevent the crack opening become worsen. Okay, again, these are categories for defects such as surface defect, wear and polishing, map cracking, pops up, scaling, shallow reinforcing, and spalling. For joints, longitudinal joint, transverse joints. Pavement cracks, we also have transverse slab cracks, decracking, corner cracks, meander cracks. And for pavement deformation, we have a blow up, supporting pavement settlement or heave, utility repairs, patches, potholes, manhole, and inlet cracking. So, most importantly, whatever it is, either you have a concrete pavement or flexible pavement, the most important system in the structure of the road itself, providing a drainage. Without a proper drainage or without a proper maintenance of the drainage, that can cause any failures on slope failure, for example, or we also have this kind of the road infrastructure failures. So you see how important that how the water forces, water influence on the performance of road itself. Okay, back to this slide. Other than these two manuals, we also have JKR, Arahan Teknik Jalan by JKR, to be followed or to be referred as the guidelines. And we also have a policy on geometric design of highways and shaped by American Association of State Highway and Transportation Official, ASHTO. So ASHTO is very common because when you are conducting highway material testing, so we are referring to the ASHTO. For example, if you are conducting soil testing in geotechnical lab, so we are referring to the PS standard. And similarly, for for referring any that relevant to the method of sampling, we can refer from H2 or BS, or if you are designing for bridge purpose, so this will differ by having a H2 LRFD. Okay, next one on the pavement structural condition assessment. So the assessment can be carried out by few techniques. For example, by having a visual condition survey, or we also can have a testing on site from non-destructive test or destructive test. Okay, the investigation is normally intended to identify which pavement layers have deteriorated, to identify the extent and causes of the deterioration, and to provide information that can be used to help with the design of appropriate maintenance treatments. So remember, in the differences between flexible and rigid pavement, I think that for the benefit of using asphalt or flexible pavement, because when you are planning to have a repairing work, we only need to remove affected area only on the surface. We don't take it as a whole part of the structure itself. So that's a good thing about the flexible pavement. But the issue is when you have some kinds of the potholes and then you are choosing very cheap material to be made, to be placed on the uh, defect surface, that come back to the repetitive problems. You have to patch again, repatch again, and in terms of the weather conditions, so these are some factors that need to be controlled so that the repairing work can be done within the time or before the weathering become bad. So these are the things, the weaknesses of using the flexible pavement lah. But back to the instrumentation or controlling for assessment method, it is similar for flexible and also for the rigid. Because when you see here at the next slide, these are some experiment listed for rigid pavement and also for the flexible pavement. For example, if you have a rigid pavement, you want to conduct a test to do on assessment, road assessment to detect any defect on the road structure or roads pavement surface. So these are the things that or these are the testing that can be carried out on site. For example, deflection testing. We also can have a wave testing, or we also can have X-ray testing, skid resistance measurement, roughness profilometer. Okay, have you heard or have you experienced on performing the skid resistance measurement? Ada tak siapa-siapa pernah buat testing on skid resistance? Pernah buat tak skid resistance experiment?
Pernah.
Apa yang kita perlu ada? Apa yang membezakan eksperimen tu dengan eksperimen yang lain? Cuba senaraikan eksperimen apa yang you buat dekat lab highway tu. Ingat tak ke tak pernah masuk lab highway?
Tak ingat madam.
Kalau skip resistant tu apa yang you ingat? Apa yang you buat?
Dia nak test jalan tu punya ni kan, macam friction antara tayar dengan permukaan jalan.
Okay, apa dia punya output I mean that measurement apa yang kita get from the skip resistant tu? What's the value? Azim je yang tak balik lagi. Jiwa dia masih dekat sini lagi. Boleh lah kot walaupun jasad dia. Awak kat mana sekarang, Azim?
Kat
Dekat
bilik
rumah ke
madam.
kat college? College lagi lah.
College.
Okay, bila nak balik?
Petang ni madam. Pukul 5.
Okay, lepas habis kelas lah.
Ya betul.
Alright, okay. Okay lah, baguslah antara test yang kita buat untuk identify how good the pavement material is by conducting the skid resistance. As what Azim said, yes, we are determine the skid resistance. So the measurements, I think that all of you can refer back from your lab manual. Because I am forgot and I am not familiar with the lab, highway lab procedure and also the testing. But I think how do you do or how do you determine for viscosity of the material? What's experiment? The permeability or the viscosity of the material, because when you construct a flexible pavement such as asphalt, the bitumen itself, because we need to ensure that our bitumen has this kind of the characteristic. So one of it is the penetration, or we call it as the dia punya viscosity tu. Macam mana kita nak conduct dia? Bitumen awak tu jenis apa, kategori dia apa, specification dia apa. Siapa yang dah pernah buat LI ataupun LI you dekat company highway? Ataupun you apa ni duduk dekat department highway during your internship tu? Have you experienced any conducting on-site assessment? Pernah buat? Pernah ikut tak? Pakat semua diam. Tak apalah. Tak apalah, tak nak jawab pun tak apa. Okey, yang test saya sebut tadi tu, test yang tak melibatkan kemusnahan struktur tu ataupun sampel dia tak rosak. So, kita boleh terus buat testing dekat site. Contohnya macam tadi lah, ground penetration radar ataupun load transfer test. Ada setengah test tu dia perlukan wave sebagai dia punya medium untuk transform the results. So, selain daripada tu, kita boleh dapatkan juga the conditions of your drainage, sama ada good or poor drainage kan. Dan it's very, orang kata apa, in terms of the budget cost, senanglah kita buat non-disruptive. Filter tak perlu pakai cost yang tinggi lah. Tapi ada setengah site ataupun location that we require for disruptive filters, such as concrete coring, asphalt coring, and then soil boring. Untuk rigid pavement samalah macam soil boring for flexible pavement. Cuma nanti kalau macam concrete coring ni, rigid pavement dia berbeza lah kan, sebab dia material pun untuk form concrete dia berbeza dengan asphalt coring. But the thing is that we going to take the same parameter, for example thickness determination, Beza dekat sini lah, dekat concrete coring kita nak tahu kan dia punya steel corrosion tu dekat mana berlaku. Kalau asphalt pavement tu deterioration ni apa bentuk failure dia, adakah dia bentuk crack. Kalau crack tu apa contoh-contoh crack dia, alligator crack ke, hair crack ke, semua benda tu kita nak kena pastikan. Kalau tanya awak apa dia alligator crack tu, boleh define tak what is the alligator crack in terms of the pattern and then the size itself? Siapa boleh cerita what is the alligator crack? Hmm? Macam mana kita nak tunjuk, nak tahu crack on road surface tu jenis crack biasa ke, alligator crack ke apa benda? Siapa boleh explain?
Tengok pattern dia, madam.
Betul. Corak dia macam mana corak? Pattern dia tu macam mana?
Kalau alligator crack dia macam badan alligator. Dia
Kulit
macam
buaya lah kan. Sebab senang sebenarnya kita nak tengok alligator crack ni. Contoh laluan daripada BKA nak ke parking berbumbung apa tu solar tu kan depan facility. So dia punya crack pattern tu like Azim said lah, dia bentuk apa ni kulit buaya kan, dia round shape. Kemudian kalau hair crack ni selalunya ataupun kita panggil longitudinal crack, dia bentuk panjang sepanjang permukaan jalan ataupun dia melintang, so bukan alligator crack lah. So crack ni they are different factors lah, causes for having this kind of the crack lah. And then crack ni kadang boleh berlaku punca daripada the edge of the root itself. Punca apa ni berlaku, mula dia air je, asal takungan air ke, lepas tu air tu melemahkan struktur bawah root surface, and then dia mulalah merebak-rebak dia punya sakit ataupun jalan tu mengalami kerosakan. Other than that, kadang tu due to the low bearing capacity of the subgrade. Kalau macam remember early class I shown to you two difference of the structure of the rigid pavement as well the flexible pavement. At the bottom of the road structure is a subgrade layer. So if you are not properly compacted the subgrade layer at the beginning, so they can cause to the material failures at the top of the road surface. I mean that at the initial on the compactions. So bila kata kita cerita pasal compaction yang kita buat dekat lab tu, saya rasa compaction dekat lab dia punya prosedur alat dia lebih kurang sama lah, yang mana kita nak compact dengan beberapa layer. Tapi dekat site dia punya practical tu quite different lah. I mean to check dia punya compaction reach to the standard ke, dia berbeza lah, because on-site constructions, on-site compaction dia dah letak dia punya standard mesti reach 95% of the field or 95% of the compaction. So kalau kata you compact few layers go and back and then you pakai compactor machine dan tak capai lagi 95%, so the process of the compaction still continue lah. And that's important, we have a strong ataupun very high strength in the subgrade. Kalau kata subgrade tak bagus, you punya thickness design dah cukup, you dah supply pavement apa tu surfacing material yang bagus, tapi at the bottom dia lemah, so totally dia akan menyebabkan road failure lah, road defect. Okay, the next one is on. Okay, ini antara contoh lah macam saya bagi tahu untuk destructive test yang mana kita conduct dekat site dan kita ambil sampel dia tu. Sampel dia dalam bentuk coring. Some roads especially untuk jalan yang dah disiap banner dan dia dah siap letak surface, pavement ke, concrete ke, asphalt ke, concrete ke, dia akan ambil sampel dalam bentuk core. coring sampel ni dia akan bawa ke lab, and then dia tested untuk tengok dia punya stiffness dia, modulus dia reach tak kepada standard yang kita dah set. Tujuan dia apa? Sebab kita nak ensure that from the top of the surfacing layer sehinggalah bottom layer of the structure root tu dia kuat, dia can bear loading, dynamic or vehicle loading. Dynamic loading kat sini saya refer kepada vehicle loading lah, because vehicle loading ni macam bila you nak tentukan thickness of the pavement layer kan, kita kena tengok kenderaan tu jenis apa, kemudian carriage kita two ways ke one way ke ataupun sebagainya kan, sebab semua tu akan memberi impact kepada ketebalan setiap pavement structure layer, ketebalan lapisan-lapisan struktur jalan tersebut. Kalau kata design structure pavement ni tak betul in terms of dia punya dimensions ke road geometry ke, yang tu dia akan kacau lah kepada keseluruhan performance of the new constructed road tersebut. Okay, selain daripada kita buat kaedah sampling tu, disruptive test ataupun non-disruptive test, kita boleh conduct also the visual condition survey. So, the visual condition surveys ni, kalau to the latest technology, sekarang ni kita boleh guna drone lah kan. Drone tu nanti dia can capture you image, kemudian dia display result dan automated data semuanya. So, senang lah untuk kita buat maintenance activity. Maintenance nak buat berapa kali, kemudian apa dia punya defect. So all that things in real conditions lah, ataupun real time punya effect. So bila real time punya effect management, so maknanya kata benda tu lebih mudah lah, dan failure tu dia tak sepatutnya makin teruk lah berbanding kita biar lama-lama duration tu become worse. But in Malaysia, I'm not sure why we keep having the same problem at the same location. So itu antara benda yang kita or new engineer macam you all semua ni lah find out lah kenapa, ataupun apa cara supaya kita boleh stop tempat yang sama berulang lagi berlaku. Macam patches kan, pothole tu. Kita dah nampak lah jalan tu dah berlubang, dah turap sekali. Lepas tu ada lagi turapan. Kadang tu patch hole kita tu, patches tu lagi tinggi daripada original road surface kan. So tu apa sebab dia, kontraktor buat kerja halal-balal ke, tak ada budget ke, tak ada cost ke, wallahualam lah. So I am not sure lah. Tapi apa yang saya perasan lah, sebelum ni nak dekat kat pilihan raya, kita boleh nampak kan kita punya permukaan jalan daripada warna kelabu dah jadi hitam pekat. Itu tanda-tanda awal lah pilihan raya nak dekat. Itulah yang kita nampak kan. So sebelum ni kalau jalan rosak tak ada siapa pun nak buat tindakan, nak buat repair ke apa ke kan. Ni tahu-tahu jalan dah berturap, jalan pun elok je. Satu lagi, kalau you boleh perasan perbezaan antara flexible pavement dengan rigid pavement lah. Kalau you travel dekat area gurun, area gurun, ada satu laluan tu memang concrete pavement. Bila kita jalan, bila kita jalan atas pavement tersebut, the surface is not very smooth lah. So kita akan rasa kurang selesa bila kita drive dekat kawasan tersebut. Berbanding you ada flexible pavement kan, your travel comfortability tu ada dekat situ. Keselesaan untuk you bawa kereta ada berbanding jalan rigid pavement. So itu pun dia punya perbezaan lah kan. Dan bad things about infrastructure failure ni, dia bukan setakat defect on the road itself. You as a driver kan, kita ada kereta, so kalau asyik duk langgar lubang, langgar patch hole semua, lastly dia akan beri impact kepada car balancing, alignment penakan lari kan. So that dia affect balik lah kepada cost kan, semua benda tu lah. So back to here, selain daripada kita buat testing tadi tu, kita boleh buat juga visual survey lah. So visual survey ni, they can give you a chart lah. Chart ni nanti you can see on the section dia, and then what is the treatment length, kemudian subsection rating treatment dia, how do you can adopt and how do you can apply to have a proper mitigations. Okay, DCP, dynamic penetrometer, is very common. It's very common in the highway as well in soil geotechnical area. So selain daripada itu, kita juga ada high speed road monitor. High-speed road monitor is function to give a longitudinal profile and then identify the routing, microtexture, and also giving you alignment parameters. Okay, what is a dynamic cone penetrator? It is a device in which a hardened cone tip is placed on the surface and then a wake is repeated, drop on it from a specific height after a set number of blows, such as every 5 blows, the penetration of the cone into the surface is measured, and it is used primarily on unbound materials such as base or subgrade soil or weakly stabilized material. So it is considered non-destructive because the test does not affect the ability of the material to support the pavement structure. So the DCP test indicates the shear strength of the material based on the measurement of the rate of this device. So this DCP, of course, it is measuring on the strength of the material. Kalau kata strength material kat sini ni, it highlighted for subgrade dan juga subbase lah. So as I said, differences between rigid dan juga flexible pavement is due to the material supply. The shortage of the material in concrete, for example, has come to the sustainable material ataupun green material. So now dia tak pelik lah kalau you akan nampak kita menggunakan replace material ataupun recycle material in our construction road. Contohnya kalau kata sebelum ni kita gunakan konkrit untuk buat rigid pavement kan, maybe soon kita akan pakai benda yang lain, contohnya rubber ataupun kita pakai that kind of the plastic. So it's part of the surfacing layer sahaja. So you akan nampak lah kan daripada kita nak spend money on concrete production yang memberi impact kepada environment, so we come up with the new sustainable or green material to replacing the concrete productions in part of the rigid pavement material. So itu antara perbandingan lah di antara rigid concrete material dan juga asphalt material. Okay, kita juga ada falling weight and deflectometer. Selain daripada tu, we also have backlayment beam deflection. So yang ni lebih sesuai untuk rigid pavement. Selain daripada tu, we also have sideway force coefficient, routine investigation machine. Okay, ni semua dia punya bentuk-bentuk lah ataupun eksperimen apa. So the new latest, it's not new lah, but I think that the GPR is a good technology for non-destructive geophysical method where we need a wave to transmit between one point to another point. So it is very function for network level surveys to determine the thickness, the structural section, and also can be used as an independent quality control, quality assurance audit, and to find the locations, the air voids content, special structures, and to conduct forensic survey. The forensic survey in determine on thickness parameter, moisture susceptibility, transition structures, etc. So the GPR is very selective among of these non-destructive type because they does not involve with the demolitions or fail structure. So you just bring your equipment on site and then you start rolling the probe on the road surface, for example, to give on these parameters lah, thickness, structural section, etc. Yeah, for the laboratory testing, so I just back to refresh on your memory. What are the testing can be carried out in lab? For example, density measurement, compressive strength measurement, and then the material modulus measurement, and also quality of consolidation check, and the air content measurements, aggregate sampling. For flexible pavement, this is what I asked just now. What are the testing that can be conducted at the lab? For example, density measurement, same. And we also have compressive strength measurement, stripping measurement, material modulus measurement. Of course, material modulus measurement totally different with the concrete, because at the asphalt, we want to focus on the bitumen. Inclusion observations on the grading of material, asphalt content measurement, temperature stability measurement, penetration of asphalt pavement, and the ductility of the asphalt pavement. Okay, I'll continue with testing listed here. Some can be referred from the soil lab testing, such as sieve analysis, liquid limit measurement, plastic index. Okay, soil boring testing. Remember soil boring testing when you are conducting destructive test, where you have a core sample. The core sample you bring to the lab and then determine some parameters on soil itself and also from the pavement parameters. Okay, we end our chapter 1, chapter 4, the infrastructure failure on road. After holiday, we're going to cover on another two infrastructure failures, drainage and airport. And if I am not mistaken, I have uploaded one case study that require you to do the learning activities similar as what we had in the chapter 3. So you have to identify the or you have to give some case description, and then identify the cause, effect, process of the failure, what is the mitigation technique, what is the instrumentation technique, and what is the lesson learned can be highlighted from the case study. So I am not going to conduct the learning activity today, now, because I am leave it to you to complete by yourself. So I hope that will be fine untuk support semua orang setujulah, agree dengan this approach. I mean that remaining hour untuk this class saya lepaskan anda buat. Okay, as I mentioned awal-awal tadi, saya memang tak set limit lah untuk you submit learning activities tu. Selagi mana you buat dan you tak kena bar dalam final exam tu, baguslah, maknanya saya tahulah you buat kan. Sebab nanti kalau attendance tak cukup, you tak boleh duduk final exam. So saya remind lah, take your time 1 week holiday ni untuk complete kan mana yang tak siap. So tujuan dia apa? Macam selalu saya pesankan, sebab case khusus ni dia punya teaching and learning methodology approach by conducting a case study. So you kena familiar dengan pelbagai cases supaya you boleh identify, you can list few cases, few causes, few effects, supaya senanglah kita nak menulis ataupun menjawab semasa test dan juga final exam. Ada apa-apa soalan lagi tak? Sebelum kita akhiri our session, our class session today.
So far tak ada, madam.
Tak, nak tengok. Yang tak jawab tu ada masalah tak? Aimin ke, Yusrizal ke? On sikit kamera.
Tak ada, madam.
Alah, kelahannya jawab. Ke dah ready dah nak balik? Ada? Jangan lupa cuti seminggu. Buat tau learning activity tu. Jangan tak buat pula. Kan saya lock time lah. Saya lock time. Tak cukup awak punya apa? Yelah, sebab learning activity tu saya boleh track. So bila saya boleh track, saya tahulah awak punya kehadiran tu berapa persen. Takkan nak ambil banyak kali kan? Ambil sekali cukup lah. So banyaklah kan test atas awak ni masa cuti. Siapkan saya punya learning activity. Kemudian jangan lupa ulang kaji. Sebab kita punya tarikh test berapa bulan? 9 kan? So far tari test tu dia tak ada perubahan tau. So you kena bersedialah dengan tari yang saya dah share hari tu. So kalau tak ada soalan lagi, apa-apa saya doakan semoga anda semua selamat cuti nanti. Jangan apa kata, yelah jangan buat aktiviti pelik-pelik lah kan dengan cuaca tak menentu ni. Jaga diri anda, jaga keselamatan anda dan keluarga anda. Okay, Assalamualaikum dan good afternoon. Bye-bye. Okay.
Salam. Terima kasih doktor.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Cuti.